And well, get in is the expression I often use. Welcome to another very exciting founder story episode of the Good Listening To Show, Stories of Distinction and Genius. I'm Chris Grimes, but more importantly, this is Ben Nathan. But before I talk about men or Ben, I'll talk about myself first. So I'm a motivational comedian, easy for me to say, a facilitator and coach. And this is a special founder story where the podcast and the radio show is where I invite movers, makers, shakers, mavericks, influencers, and also personal heroes into a clearing or serious happy place of my guests' choosing, as we all get on the open road of sharing where your clearing is and at will blow as much happy smoke at you as I possibly can. Ben Nathan is a warm, enigmatic presence. You'll experience that very, very soon. We have history in that we live in Bristol, and we've known of each other for quite some time. We were at another fellow actor called Saikat Ahmed's show recently, where we reconnected, and then I just asked you the question: how do you fancy coming in and doing a founder story? So we're going to get into the who, the what, the where, the why, the how, the who, the he, the how, the he, of what you do. And we'll get on to, at the very end, doing an exciting bit called Show Us Your QR Code, Please, where we're going to point everyone to Luft coaching. So, Ben Nathan, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Chris.
It's lovely to see you.
Yeah, same.
So how's morale, and what's your story of the day, please?
Gosh, morale is good. Morale is good as long as I've been able to look after my body and my mind, which I have already this morning, then I'm good to go. So, and that might involve a swim, a sauna, some cold water, and brushing my teeth.
Thank you for brushing your teeth. I'm experiencing the lovely waft of that now. So there's very definitely a sort of through line already of the holistic approach to what you do, and put your own mask on first. There's self-care before you can then begin to care for others, as you so brilliantly do.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and I think showing up, you know, and how we all show up is something that I'm interested in personally and for us. And yeah, so and I think coming from a performance background, that's kind of ingrained in me anyway. And so sharing those experiences and learning and strategies, I think, helps others.
And we share that resonance as well, in that we use the transferable skills of having actor trained to then bring that to bear in the corporate training, the coaching space as well. So just to finally blow the final bit of happy smoke before we really get you on the open road, you're obviously, I know you know what you do, but you're an executive coach, a trainer and a speaker. Just if you get that really clunky networking question that we've all got to deal with it, but if someone doesn't have a frame of reference for the wonderful warm presence that you are, and you are somebody who's quite enigmatic and people will lean in, but what's your favorite way of answering or avoiding the question, hello, what do you do? So how would you describe what Ben Nathan does?
Yeah, and I have various forms of it that aren't necessarily scripted, but essentially it's about helping individuals and teams and organizations to communicate their message with more clarity, have more impact in those important sort of interactions and settings, whether that's presentations or networking events, whatever it might be. And then I think also, you know, making better choices individually and in a group setting to have more success.
Yes. And it's about curating, well, a new perspective in order through Luft. So just tell us the story behind the story of why Luft coaching.
Yeah, well, you know, Luft is my company. I'm the founder. It's actually a German word, which means...
I forgot, you've got your own slide there.
Oh, there we are.
Awkward.
Yeah. so it means like space or air, and not to preempt you too much, a clearing. And I think that's kind of what I am passionate about, is creating a space where people can talk about difficult subjects, work out what they're going to do next. And, you know, that's what I love doing, is facilitating those kind of spaces. So Luft felt like a good word that encapsulated that. And we'll probably come onto it later again. But, you know, I kind of subconsciously, deliberately chose a non-English word because I don't feel 100% British.
Aha.
So in terms of sort of making a nod to that and feeling like I was being authentic, that was kind of the thinking there. Yeah.
I've always liked the name Luft because it made me think of like taking a helicopter view and landing in the clearing, as you so rightly said. I also really like the fact that when we started talking, you've talked about self-care first. So you've done all your own metaphorical teeth washing, you're good to go. And then that makes you monumentally present when you take your helicopter land into your own Luft clearing.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And people who know me well will probably tell you that I probably brush my teeth about 4 to 5 times a day, which is a little bit excessive. But and again, from the acting days, it's like, I think before a show or before a take, I would brush my teeth because I would feel really prepared and ready for anything. And I think certainly in life as well,
Yes.
I want to put those things into place so that I feel like the world can throw anything at me and I'll be okay.
And I love it because it's not OCD actually, although
No,
it could be. It's much more about the ritual of preparation.
Yep.
And I love the fact you used to do that back in there as an actor. You went to Mount View Theatre School, didn't you?
And even when I go to my mum's house now, I realise I sort of have inherited it from her because she has a toothbrush and I don't want this podcast to be all about tooth care, but
we are available for sponsorship.
She has like a toothbrush and
Doesn't he have lovely teeth? Anyone want to sponsor that?
Anyway, yeah, I won't go on more about oral healthcare and stuff.
Yes,
because we're not being sponsored by any dental.
And as a family DNA, did you have terrible halitosis back in the day?
No, not at all. Not at all. No.
Yes. Excellent. So I'm going to get you on the open road of the structure and the construct. There's going to be a clearing, a tree, a lovely juicy storytelling exercise called 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There's going to be some alchemy, some gold, a couple of random squirrels, a cheeky bit of Shakespeare, a golden baton and a cake. So it's absolutely all to play for. And I can't remember if I mentioned Shakespeare in there as well, because we're going to get something from the 7 Ages of Man speech to talk about the legacy of Luft as well. Marvellous. So, Ben Nathan, any questions before we start?
I'm good to go. I'm strapped in.
Let's do this. Come on, people. Hasn't he got lovely teeth? Here we go. So what is, first of all, a clearing or a serious happy place for you, Ben? Where do you go to get ready to deliver the awesomeness that you do?
So when I thought about this question, not for very long, I actually thought about not necessarily a place, but actually the people. Because, it sounds like a cliche, but I am a people person. I'm probably quite extrovert with a bit of introvertedness as well. But I think for me, it's if I'm around the people that I really love and think are great, then I think that's probably one of my happy places. So that could be anywhere. But it's very much about the people, I think. That was the first way I thought.
So it's about the art of collaboration. That's not just family. That's anyone with whom you feel a warm connection.
Yeah, absolutely. It's family, it's friends, it's work colleagues. It's about that sort of setting and that community and that they create that or we create it together. So I think people is certainly the first thing I would think about. Selhurst Park is probably my next happy place, which is where my beloved Crystal Palace play football. So when I watch Crystal Palace live or on telly or actually, rugby or football on the telly, that's also my happy place because I switch off and I'm just sort of taken to another place where, all of my worries and fears are gone because I'm just literally, I've switched off and I'm just watching this football match. Yeah.
I'm quite excited at the idea. No one in my circa 250 episodes yet has said a football pitch or stadium. And you're not just saying that, but I'm quite excited about taking a sort of Luft helicopter landing into the centre circle of Crystal Palace, if you'd like that.
Oh, wow. Wouldn't that be great?
Also available for sponsorship by Crystal Palace and McLean's. Don't forget that as well. So is that all right? So I'm going to arrive there's your people standing there within a semicircle. I'm now going to arrive with a tree in your clearing.
Yeah.
And I know you'll enjoy this because this is a bit deliberately existential, a bit Beckett-y, a bit Waiting for Godot-esque, which is where I came up with the idea. So now I'm going to shake your tree to see which storytelling apples fall out. How do you like these apples? Feel free to hold one. Please don't eat it. If you bang it on the table, it's a prop.
Yeah.
Come in. So you can have that. So this is now where you've taken 5 minutes to have thought about, Ben Nathan, executive coach, 4 things that have shaped you, 3 things that inspire you, 2 things that never fail to grab your attention, and we'll get on to that. That's where I'll introduce the squirrels or your shiny object syndromes. And then the 1 is a quirky or unusual fact about you we couldn't possibly know about you until you tell us. So it's not a memory test. You'll be relieved. But now to curate you through that, over to you to shake the canopy of your tree as you see fit.
What was it again?
4 things that have shaped you. What's he talking about? This is a load of old cobblers.
Who the hell are you anyway?
Yes.
Yeah, 4 things that have shaped me. Okay, so my grandparents is probably number 1. They're no longer with us now, but so I think growing up, my mum and dad used to drop me at my grandparents' quite a lot, so they could go off dancing or whatever they did.
That's a
And
very lovely romantic notion of where mum and dad have gone.
Yeah.
They've gone dancing, dear.
sod the kids, let's just go and have a good time. But I did have a good time with my grandparents, and I think it was that, yeah, you know, I think in lots of cultures that the the child grandparent relationship is quite unique. I remember I was in India and Nepal, and that's quite a common thing. So the parents can go off and work, the grandparents will do the childcare. And it was sort of the same for me, and I loved it because it was a sort of quite a traditional setting. My grandparents are first generation immigrants from Russia, Jewish Russians. So it had this kind of old world, traditional, cozy, warm, lots of food, lots of treats, lots of nice things, and I loved it. You know, playing cards, going to the shops, going for walks. And in fact, my grandfather owned an electrical shop. He would sell vacuum cleaners and televisions and light bulbs. So as I grew older, I would then work with him at the weekend, and you know, we'd go for fish and chips. And so yeah, so I think those two people would stand out as shaping me.
And what were their names?
Sid and Rini.
Oh, I'm so glad I asked that. What lovely questions. Sid and Rini.
And my grandfather's business was called Sidrons because he put Sid and Rini together to make Sidron, and his customers used to call him Mr. Sidron. They didn't know his name was Mr. Nathan. He would just go along with it and go, "Oh, hello, yeah, Mr. Sidron."
Love that. Wonderful. And where was the shop based?
Well, it started in Tottenham Court Road,
Yeah,
where there still are lots of sort of hi-fi tech, television, you know, type places. And then he moved to Streatham. So he had two shops on Streatham High Road, and he would employ various members of his family, his brothers, his sisters, his grandchildren. He had a van. You know, we'd go and take televisions to people's houses and hook them up, and they'd, you know, slip me a couple of quid. So I loved it. Yeah, really enjoyed it. And as I say, that sort of cultural, authentic, old-fashioned sort of world I liked, because I'm probably got a bit of old-fashionedness in me,
yes,
as well, and they were Cockneys as well, so a lot of
so there's Russian, Jewish, Cockney extraction in your DNA.
Yeah, because I think, you know, even now I think is it the Bengali community who you know, that they sort of are in Brick Lane.
Yes,
And if you go back another 50 years, it was Jewish Russians.
Yeah,
and I think the further you go back, I think you even get like French Huguenots. How do you say it?
Write in on a postcard, please.
Right, but this idea that there is this place where immigrants go, you know, East
Yes.
London. So that's where they sort of landed and grew
And I
up.
can't remember if that's as formal as ghettoization, but it's about the desire for communities to gather together as
Yeah.
one. My parents live in Leicester, or my mum's still with us, but you know, that's stereotypically almost like a Ugandan Asian migration place as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
There is a pattern, isn't there?
Yes.
The different
And of course-
waves of immigrants go to the same places.
And of course, Golders Green being archetypally
Yeah.
Jewish as well.
Mm.
And you did mention you don't feel 100% English in terms of where you're from, and that's why. I understand now.
Which is my second thing that has shaped me, is my Jewish identity, definitely. So, and the way I think about it is, you know, I was the only Jewish child in my primary school. I lived in southeast London, so there weren't, you know, they're all in North London, most Jews. There aren't that many in South London, or at least there weren't then. And equally in my secondary school, there were probably 2 or 3 of us out of 1,000 kids. And I think because, you know, I think about this a lot, and in fact, David Baddiel writes about this, the difference between the Jewish ethnicity rather than other ethnicities that are visibly apparent. You can see the difference in someone, whether that's the color of their skin or the clothes they wear or the traditional dress that they wear. But it's different with Jewish people. It's often hidden. And I certainly grew up feeling like I had a secret, you know, that not many other people knew about and couldn't see. So it was always sort of under the surface. And I think that's definitely shaped my my view of the world, where I sit in it.
And you mentioned as a secret, is that because you felt it needed? Well, I'm just going to ask about the secret. So why did you say secret?
Okay, so 2 episodes that I think highlight that. One is, again, going back to my grandparents and their generation. I think when we were out in public, and if they would use the word Jewish, Jews, or Judaism, they would say that word at a much lower volume. My grandfather wore a bowler hat and was, loved the Queen and was a very proud British man. But I think sometimes he hid the other part of his identity. So I think I inherited that a little bit. Yeah.
Lovely answer.
Hmm.
So great shapages so far. Anything else you want to say about number 2, which is about the Jewish identity?
Anything else I want to say? Well, yeah, I think the other thing is that, obviously diversity and equality and inclusion are such big hot topics at the moment. And, I feel in some ways that I get that, it's a lived experience, but in a different way to,
Yes.
because it's quite invisible. But I do get it, and I do feel strongly about it. And I do appreciate that, how you can feel not quite part of the group.
Yes.
And everyone's got different reasons why, whether you, I don't know, prefer working from home than working in the office, or whatever it might be. But yeah, no, I feel I get that.
Lovely. And then I've got a bell for moving us on.
Yeah.
Shapage number 3, please.
Yeah.
So now shapage number 3. I'll scratch my ear.
At the risk of bringing a sort of a lower energy to it, my brother's suicide has definitely shaped me. So that happened about 5 years ago during COVID, and it was a shocking event. It definitely shook my family and shook me. But the reason why I say that it has shaped me is I do think I have changed since then in some ways. And I say that because I think, out of tragedy, out of hardship, I do think good things can come. I do think my brother's story has taught that. So I didn't have, towards the end of his life, I didn't have a great relationship with him, and I didn't see his kids very much. Now I see his kids a lot. I'm a really important figure in their life, I hope. It's improved the relationship with my mum, so out of tragedy, I think I've learned, at least for me, and it's not for everyone, I've learned a lot of really important, an important life skill that good things can come from being rock bottom type of thing. So I do think that shaped me. And I think also, self-harm in sort of youth these days, not just with young people, but lots of people. And I think I've experienced that. I understand it a bit. And I think there are ways to use that as, where are we going to go from this? What do we learn from this kind of thing?
And forgive me if you said this, was he an older brother or a younger brother?
Yeah, older, nearly 10 years.
Right.
Yeah, nearly 10 years older. We, like you said, the various ages of man in Shakespeare, we had different periods in our lives where we've got on really well, where we didn't get on well, and it was difficult at times. Mental health being a big sort of obstacle, but certainly it shaped me, and it makes me look at the world and see the world with a different sort of coloured lens at times,
and a different perspective.
Which
is the new perspective is what you now bring in your work.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, and I think I'll sort of choices. We all have choices that we can make in our lives, whether it's about how do we prepare for an event like this, or a difficult conversation, and I think that sort of ties into it with me. That we can choose how we respond to.
Yes.
In fact, I remember now what I was thinking. So you might have heard of it, the book Man's Search for Meaning.
Yes.
By Viktor Frankl, who was a Holocaust survivor, and his famous phrase is, between stimulus and response there is a space. To plug Luft again, and that's our freedom. That's our place where we can decide to make a choice or not, depending on which way.
Deliberately to reincorporate, just say that again, because I heard it, but I think it's worth restating.
I think the phrase is, between stimulus and response there is a space, and in that space lies our freedom. And I think for him it was, in the depravity of Auschwitz, where he was, even there, even with the terror that he experienced there was still one human freedom that could not be taken away, which is, how do I choose to respond to this?
And dignity springs to mind as one of
Dignity,
the responses.
Yeah. And interestingly, then I'll stop this story, but what I loved in the book is he said that those people in Auschwitz who saved their food for others lived longer because they had a purpose, because they had a reason to keep going, to look after other people. Whereas the people who sort of huddled within themselves, individually or in a group, according to him, did not survive as long.
There's a resonance with you seeing the the bright side, if there is one, of your brother's demise, in that you've now got a purpose in taking care of his children.
Absolutely.
Not exclusively, I don't imagine, but maybe you do.
Yeah,
that's really
definitely.
important.
And I have an innate sort of positivity. I'm sometimes quite blinkered, that I refuse to see anything that's going to get in the way. But absolutely, and purpose, I think, is one of the most important gifts that's available to us.
And are you now an only child, or have you got another sibling?
And I've got another sibling.
Yeah. Another brother or another sister?
A sister.
Hurrah! And what's her name?
Hannah.
And where are you positioned in terms of who popped out first?
So my brother was first, and then it was me.
Yes.
And then my sister.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm in the middle.
And of course, anyone listening, what you're saying is profoundly relatable. It's not about me, but it is relatable because of a death we had in our family, which wasn't suicide, but it was my Hazel, my sister Hazel, who died many years ago. Anyway, that's the whole point. If you tell your story out loud, you're more likely to live it out loud by resonating with stories that you're hearing, and this is lovely. We're on to Shapeage number 4, please.
What was that? Do you know what? I'm just going to check.
Please do.
My phone, because I sort of wrote down.
Here it comes. Number 4 is going to be worth the wait.
Being a dad.
Yes.
Being a dad, and I'm sure lots of listeners can relate to this if they're parents, and if they're not, then there must be other ways that, I've learnt a lot from my kids. It's probably the one job you don't have a booklet for.
Ain't no manual for that.
And but they're brilliant. They teach. I'm proud to be a dad. I love being a dad. Both my kids, even though they're quite young, have had their own health challenges, which again we've worked through it. And just sometimes they'll say something that can just cut through and simplify, whatever is going on. So yeah, I think my 2 kids and being a dad is high up on the list of things that have shaped me, definitely.
And how old are the mini Nathans?
The mini Nathans, the big one, who's as tall as me now, is 17.
Yeah.
Hi, Jonah, if you're listening. And my little boy, who shouldn't be listening, if he is, he's in the toilet at school, and that's not good. He's 12.
Yeah. Great. Love that. So now, thank you. We're on to 3 things that inspire you. And if there's any overlap or resonance, but 3 things that inspire you, Nathan.
So I was sort of mulling over, do I mention this? But I think I will, because the people that I've got lots of family in Israel. Now, what's happening right now is a tragedy. It's awful. It makes me really sad. And I pray. In fact, I was just Facebook messaging a friend in Gaza, who was sort of sharing his on the ground experiences, and I repeatedly say to him, I pray that they come to a solution as soon as possible. So I've spent a lot of time in Israel throughout my life, and because I hope for peace in that region, because both sides of that conflict have experienced a lot of trauma, and over sort of the last 5-10 years, I've been lucky enough to meet peacemakers in the region. And it's especially those peacemakers. In fact, there's an organization called Combatants for Peace. So they're ex-combatants. So people who have either fought in the army or, for freedom fighter terrorist groups, whatever you want to call it, and have now, from that sort of conflict combat experience, now realize that peace is the way forward. So I'm really, really inspired by the time that I have and continue to spend with those people, because I think their ability to see a hopeful future and to fight for it, through dialogue, through demonstration, through activism, I find really inspiring.
Yes. And also, I remember one of the recent times we reconnected, which was a great delight, was when you were talking about the idea of a podcast idea that you had. I mean, you can either talk about that or not.
Yeah. So, well, after October the 7th, I use the metaphor of a snail. I think particularly in the Jewish community, I think a lot of people felt scared and maybe retreated into their shell. But I was one of the Jewish people where my antennae went out as a result of October the 7th, because I wanted to connect, particularly with the Muslim community in this city, in Bristol. And so, so I helped set up an interfaith group of Bristol Muslims and Jews, and we meet every month, mostly in person, sometimes online, and we have difficult conversations, and we share experiences, cultural, traditional. There's lots of similarities between Jews and Muslims, and so that's and I use that metaphor of the snail because it's not a natural reaction for some people to do that.
It's very powerful.
Yeah,
and of course, the at its core, again, as a reincorporation, is the silky skills of collaboration. Your intention is to get collaboration and understanding, and mutual
ask
respect.
Questions.
Yeah,
ask questions, ask difficult questions with respect.
Yeah,
with understanding. Recognizing that when we might not agree,
yes,
but we will listen.
And to the power of proper listening, as we know, it's not listening in order to reply because I'm right, you're wrong. It's listening in order to understand.
And it took us a fair few months to create a safe space to do that. So, going back to coaching and facilitating that contracting piece, I knew before we started was going to be really, really important. And it was, and it's proved really important because it's given us a solid foundation to go there.
Yes.
To go to difficult places.
Wonderful. And I commend you highly for that. And that's extremely brave, courageous, and a wonderful thing with very kind intentions.
Yeah.
Wonderful. This is Inspirer number 2, please.
Music. Yeah. I feel like I'm on Desert Island Discs now.
That's great.
Yeah. So music. Music definitely inspires me. I love classical music. I love soul. I love Aretha Franklin, Stevie Wonder, the Red Hot Chili Peppers, whatever it is. I've got a very eclectic taste. But, when particularly on the radio where you're not, you haven't clicked play on something you've chosen, but where something pops up that you weren't ready for and it stops you in your tracks.
My podcast editor, Dan, is an absolute genius at texturing music if and when it's mentioned.
Right.
So is there a particular track that you'd like to have pop up and go, oh, that'll make me happy?
Wow. Oh, what would that be? I mean, there was the last thing I was listening to in the car was an Edward Elgar. It was a serenade or something. But when I say serenade, Tchaikovsky's String Serenade. If you can find that, it's really beautiful.
Dan, you know exactly what to do. So this is Tchaikovsky's String Serenade.
Yeah, I don't know if it's got a number. I think if he was on Spotify and just went Tchaikovsky's String Serenade, I think it's probably the first one, and it's very, very romantic. Do you want to touch hands? No.
So this, Ben, is for you and for the audience.
My goodness.
Wow. There you go. And wasn't that lovely? Let's see what we're doing there. We're texturing and a bit of post-production as well. How exciting. The third inspiration now.
The third inspiration, I think, would have to be nature. And probably the two settings I like most would be the sea. Whether that's swimming in the sea, I like cold water, so I'll go in any temperature, or being on a cliff and being windswept by sea spray, and also like a sort of a forest. I don't know. I'm picturing a forest with lots of bluebells, and so those kind of settings are great to reset. I don't go to those places enough, but I think nature definitely inspires me. It's such a leveler, isn't it? However successful you are, however much money you've got, or however brilliant you think your life is, when you meet someone in a natural setting, everything's back to sort of square one.
Yes.
And I like that.
And your iconography within luftcoaching.com is also quite a mountainscape.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Yeah. And the metaphor there is about, going on a journey with someone or with a group of people.
Yes.
And finding a clearing, finding a junction or different pathways. Which one are we going to take and why are we going to take it? Yeah, so absolutely, and reaching the destination. How are we going to get there? Where do we want to go? Is that the right destination?
Yes. Sometimes it can be a horizon and go in that general direction, and you will find it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Lovely answer. And I think it's my show, but I'm just doing the maths on where we're up to. I think it's the third inspiration now, unless that's 3 we've done.
I think it's because I did nature. I'm just checking.
You know, me too.
Music.
Yes.
And the Peacemakers.
You did. Wonderful.
That's those 3. Yeah.
Ben and the Peacemakers. That's another company name for you. Wonderful.
Yeah. Or a band.
Yes. Let's do that. So now we're on to borrowed and inspired by the film Up. Do you mind if I throw a squirrel at you? This is squirrels. So what are your monsters of distraction? What shiny objects never fail rather to stop you in your tracks, irrespective of anything else that might be going on for you in your wonderful or hectic or eclectic or sometimes overwhelmed life?
I mean, cat videos on Instagram.
What a sophisticated answer. We like that.
Cat. I could watch Reem and dogs as well. I don't have a dog. I've always had a cat.
So is this doom scrolling per se, or it's got to be a cat video? Because I think the internet was made for you, really.
Well, I doom scroll. I do. I try not to, but I do. But I think it's particularly cats, because they do such really strange things that really make me laugh out loud. And yeah, but also, I love Alan Partridge clips that come up. Things that make me laugh, silly things. Because, despite all this sort of philosophical chat we're having, I'm quite a simple person,
I knew that.
Is it obvious? And I love silly comedy and silly videos and stuff like that. So that would be one.
I knew I liked you for that reason too. That's lovely. And so more of a cat than a dog person then?
Yes, probably.
Love that.
Yeah.
Second squirrel?
Second squirrel. I thought of those moments where I'm in a social setting. Let's say it's you and I, okay, and we're
role play.
Really great conversation, and there's another really interesting conversation happening just next to us.
Ah, yes.
And my ear, I start listening into that one.
Yeah.
And I want to, don't want to be rude to you because you're really interesting and fun, but I can't help think, what are they talking about? Because I'd like to be part of that as well.
And you literally want to go over there, and you do sometimes.
Well, I have to. I have an internal sort of dialogue with myself of like, just focus on Chris, listen to what he's saying. It's really important, and you can talk to them later.
And when we teach networking, it's called exiting with grace, isn't it?
Yeah.
Rather than, a bit boring. I'm going to go over there now.
Yeah.
You can say, thank you so much. It's been very interesting talking to you. I'm just going to go and talk to that very interesting person over there.
And as I get older, I'm getting better at it.
Yes.
At sort of being respectfully sort of efficient to say, thanks, but I'm going to go over there now, sort of thing.
Yes.
But yeah, no, I so I think I'm always interested in the next thing.
Yes.
And I've probably got sort of programs and workshops on my desktop that I've just created but have never actually delivered.
Okay.
Just because I've thought, oh, that's interesting. What could we do?
I love that. So one of your squirrels is called, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So there's just an inquisitiveness.
Definitely. Inquisitive, nosy, rude, whatever you want to say. Yeah. No, I'm not rude. I'm a bit nosy.
Yes. And that's great for being a coach anyway, because you've got to ask the right questions. Absolutely. And now we've nearly shaken your tree. The one is a quirky or unusual fact about you we couldn't possibly know about you until you tell us.
Can I have two?
Go on then.
The first one is that my great-grandfather's cousin was Leon Trotsky.
Oh!
Yeah. So my family's very proud of that. And I'm not, I'm not a political leader. I won't start a revolution, but we're all very proud in my family and sort of quite smug that we've got such an unusual, interesting connection.
What's the track? He had ice pick in his ear hole. Who's that?
Yeah.
Who's that by?
Oh, I don't know the track.
Trotsky, he got an ice pick in his ear hole.
Oh, really?
Dan, you'll know what to do.
Okay. Oh, I'd like to hear that.
So that's a great fact. So just give us the relationship again, your mum's dad's nan.
Yeah, my great-grandfather. So my granddad's dad, who I never met, but so his cousin. So he used to, as a child, my great-grandfather and Trotsky used to hang out.
Love that.
And play in the fields or whatever they did. And equally, I went to Mexico with my family years ago, and we went to Mexico City where he got the ice pick in the head. So I went to Frida Kahlo's house where because he had an affair with her, and I think that's where he copped it in Mexico City. Yeah.
Yes. Wow. Very, very good fact. And you're greedy. You wanted another one. So what's your other?
The other one is that I was a national championship rower.
Oh.
So for my school, I was in a boat and we were national champions for 2 years running,
Wow.
which was great. We were very, very successful. We had an Olympic gold winning coach who'd won gold at the 1984 Los Angeles Olympics and took it really seriously and raised our level. And yeah, we wiped the floor with everyone.
And there you are collaborating again. You're in a boat. And
Yeah.
Are we doing a sort of coxless 4 or what are we doing?
We were in a 4 and an 8. We were in a coxed 4 and a coxed 8. And I loved it. It was brilliant. It was a great experience.
And I'm very pleased with myself for that question. That made sense because at that point I didn't really know what I was talking about, but it was the right question.
Well, a coxless boat is really difficult because I can't remember which end it is. Someone's got to steer it and row.
Yeah.
With their foot, sort of adjusting the rudder. I imagine that's really hard.
And do you remember? This is just a slight squirrel. Do you remember the story of Marilyn Monroe and the commentary that was going on when Marilyn Monroe met the Oxford and Cambridge boating team?
Right.
And the punditry on the radio was, and Marilyn now going down to meet and kiss the cocks of both teams. Anyway, Dan may edit that out. I don't really know, but that's great. Anyway, so we've shaken your tree, Ben Nathan. Hurrah! Yay. So now we stay in your clearing, which is in the centre pitch of Crystal Palace with a tree. Get in. We're going to talk about alchemy and gold now. When you're at purpose and in flow, what are you absolutely doing and what you're here to reveal to the world?
Yeah, so I think it's back to the idea of curiosity and helping people find new perspectives. And what I love, and you know, Luft is my sort of purpose for doing that, is meeting a client, talking to them to understand or help them understand what it is they need.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's they want their team to communicate more clearly or have more confidence, or you know, so working with the client to work out what it is you want, what would a good outcome look like.
Yes.
Then designing the workshop based on that. And I used to be an English classroom teacher in secondary schools, so I apply some of that experience in terms of, you know, I think the acronym is VARC, the different learning styles: visual learners, audio learners, ones that like to read and write, and the K, the kinesthetic, people who learn by getting up. And you know, I'm sure you know this is something that you do as well. And I'm really passionate. Again, back to that being inclusive thing. I don't want anyone in that room to feel that this is not meeting their needs.
Yes, lovely.
You know, so I do the visual stuff, I do the audio, I get people up on their feet.
Yeah.
And I love creating that experience, delivering that experience, and at the end of it, getting good feedback as a result. So I love that.
And what's your favorite or dream client scenario? So when are you absolutely happiest when that opportunity is given to you?
Well, I'm on a drive at the moment to be working with more sustainable, purpose-driven businesses. In fact, I was at Purpose Fest last week, where I met lots of B Corp businesses, and I'm inspired definitely by those organizations where their values are really genuine and they really do inhabit and commit and you know, act out those values, you know, about being sustainable, inclusive, diverse, caring about the planet, being ethical. So I think that is the type of client that I'm working more with now, and that sits really well with me.
And indeed, we're off this very afternoon together to the Festival of Future Business, if that's what
sustainable businesses.
Yes,
absolutely.
I should know because I'm speaking at it. So bizarrely for you, I know that we're doing this, and then in 2 hours' time, I'm going to have to do a 15-minute. Well, I'm looking forward very much indeed to doing a 15-minute slot, and the podcast may well be mentioned. Lovely. So hurrah! I'm now going to award you with a cake.
Oh,
so
love
oink.
cake.
Again, don't eat it. It's actually a doggy toy.
Yeah.
But first of all, do you like cake? You just said yes. So what cake are we going for?
Tough.
A tough cake.
Yeah, really overcooked, really hard to bite into. I've got a really terrible sweet tooth. I have to have a piece of chocolate after breakfast.
Okay.
So it would probably be something really chocolatey.
Something
And
flopped it and slathered in chocolate.
yeah, an extra sauce, a bit of ice cream, whatever. Yeah.
And very exciting. I've just started a new relationship with someone called Anna's Cakes. Guess what
Okay.
she makes? And then come the day, as this evolves, you'll end up getting sent a chocolate cake.
Yes.
Bless you for that.
Brilliant.
So this is stuff like now you're going to put a cherry on the cake with stuff like what's a favorite inspirational quote that's always given you succor and pulled you towards your future, first of all?
Well, one that I use a lot, and my partner and my kids will probably groan when I say it because they're like, "Ugh, not again." Start with the end in mind, which is a Stephen Covey quote from The Habits of Highly Effective People. But I love it because, I talked about how I support clients and I start at the end. Where are we headed? What do you want the outcome to look like and sound like and be like? And I apply it in my personal life. If I'm helping my kids or whatever it is, where are we headed? What are we trying to do here? So I do love that. Start with the end in mind. I think it really resonates with how I see overcoming obstacles.
I love that. Thank you.
And then one more.
Oh, greedy.
And it's, oh no, what's her name? I'll say the quote and then it will come to me. People forget what you say. People, you know the person. People forget what you say, they forget what you do, but they never forget how you made them feel.
Maya Angelou.
So, I use that a lot in my workshops because, so much of what I do, probably what you do, is not about what we do and say, but how we do and say it, and helping people to realize that and apply that and inhabit that. So that quote just gets it in a nutshell.
Lovely. With the gift of hindsight, what notes, help, or advice might you proffer to a younger version of you, Mr. Ben Nathan?
Gosh, meet people where they're at instead of trying to drag them, kicking and screaming. Come on, this is the right way to go. I've learned that with my kids and with professionals. That it starts by meeting them where they are.
Wow, I love that. That's really just excellent. I love that.
Yeah. Well, and it applies to everything. I say
yes.
I've used it so much with my kids.
Yes.
And I've had lots of challenges with their schools because they would like the kids to be somewhere else in terms of achievement or attainment. And I have to fight against that sometimes to say, no, this is where they are.
Yeah.
And also in just more sort of family relationship stuff. This is where we are now. Let's just start from there.
Lovely philosophy. What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given, obviously by somebody else?
Well, you said it to me on the telephone the other day, and I've heard it before, and I think it's brilliant, which is be yourself because everyone else is taken, and that's, I think it comes with age. I think when you're younger, some people are trying to be something else. And then you sort of feel more comfortable in your own skin. So yeah, that's the one for me. Be yourself because everyone else is taken. And actually, if you can celebrate yourself, if you love yourself, other people will probably see that as well.
Lovely. Yeah. And now we're ramping up to Shakespeare shortly to talk about legacy and how we'll get onto that.
Right.
But this is the pass the golden baton moment, please. So they don't like it up by Mr. Mannering, but having experienced this from within, who would you most like to pass the golden baton along to in order to keep the golden thread of the storytelling going?
So they're both friends of mine. The first one is Nick at Dylan Bread, and he makes absolutely delicious whole food, keto-based alternative to traditional high carb, ultra processed loaves, and they are absolutely delicious. And I told him about this, and I said I'd mention him.
Thank you,
Dylan.
Second name.
Bread. Well, no, Dylan is the name of the company, but his name is Nick Bildner.
Nick from Dylan Bread.
Yeah.
That's going to be a great story behind the story of why does Nick from Dylan Bread call it Dylan Bread and not Nick Bread?
Well, I won't spoil it because it's a good story.
Thank you. And then you said greedy. I like you being greedy now because you're giving me
I am quite a greedy person.
Because I'm being greedy now.
Yeah.
Who's the second one?
So he used to work in this building, actually, and that's Mauro, who works for Susie House. And Susie House is essentially an app which pulls info on households from databases to work out energy-saving opportunities. And it's quite a new business. I suppose it's like having a dedicated consultant helping you to be more energy efficient and save money.
And sushi, not sushi. So I'm not going to get any fish.
Yeah, no. I'm sadly not Susy. Susy.
Wonderful. Like the lady's name, the female name, Susie.
Yes. Yes.
I was just trying to find a way to work out what I was writing down, and was that right?
Well,
Wonderful.
And now that you've mentioned that, I must mention my partner, Susanna Soz, because you've reminded me with Susie, because she's such an important person in my life and helps me overcome all sorts of challenges and see things much more simply.
This is where you can look to the camera now.
This is for you, Soz, and see things much more simply. She has this incredible ability to, if I present something complicated, she'll see the simple outcome, the simplicity of it, which I think is a real gift, because we can sometimes get really muddled with the people, the voices, the setting, the pressure, and those people that can just cut right through are really amazing. So, and she's a very kind, loving person as well.
Wonderful. And great that you mentioned her too. And now, inspired by Shakespeare, all the world's a stage and all the better women merely players. This is the actual book that I bought for myself. It's not a first folio, but when I went to the Bristol Vic Theatre School, it says in the front cover there, 16986. That's history in the making, which is why it's exciting. It's part of the show. As in, we've prepared our entire lives for this moment is partly what we're all up to if we keep on keeping on. So Shakespeare now, borrow from the 7 Ages of Man speech, all the world's a stage with all the better women merely players. How, when all is said and done, Ben Nathan, would you most like to be remembered?
Yeah, great question. I'd like to be remembered as someone who was dependable. And I think also, going back to that meeting people where they are, I think that I had the ability to adapt to where people were at and could meet them there and allow them to sort of be themselves and then flourish from there. So I think those two things.
Your legacy is secure. And now this is a very exciting moment called Show Us Your QR Code, please. So Courtney in the background is going to be whapping up some QR codes.
Thanks, Courtney.
So the first one is, can you tell us all, those that are listening and not watching, you've got to say the URL, but where can we find out all about Ben Nathan on the old Hinterweb, please?
Yeah, well, you could go on to LinkedIn and type in Ben Nathan and Luft Coaching, and you'd find me there.
Yeah.
And then the other place would be my website, which is www.luftcoaching.com.
And any other social media handles you'd like to throw at us?
Yeah, well, I have an Instagram page as well. I recently got hacked on Facebook, so I've closed that down. So it's just those, really. Yeah.
So anyone getting a friend request straight after the program from Ben Nathan is actually not Ben Nathan.
It's not me.
Lovely. Yeah. Wonderful. So as this has been your moment in the sunshine in the Good Listening To show, Ben Nathan, warm, enigmatic, executive coach, trainer, speaker, is there anything else you'd like to say?
Ooh. Yes, a story, a very quick story. So I was telling my son on the way here about the podcast, and he got excited because it, mentioned YouTube and whatever. He was like, "Oh, social media," and he said, "Oh, you should tell this story about a spider and a pen." And it's a Stephen Bartlett video, and it's basically that if you draw, if you put a spider on a piece of paper and you draw a black line around it in pen, the spider won't cross that line because it thinks it's hemmed in. It doesn't believe it can cross that line. And I prefer my version, not Stephen Bartlett's and not my son's, which is the elephant and the rope. And it's an old Indian fable of a woman walking through a forest, and she comes to a clearing, and there's a group of elephants there, big, majestic elephants and some baby ones as well. And they're tied by ropes to poles in the ground. And she says to the trainer or the person that's looking after the elephants, these are beautiful creatures and they're huge, but I'm amazed that they don't break free, because that rope and that post looks real. I could break it free. And the trainer says, well, from when they're very small, from when they're babies, we tie them by a rope to this pole, and they believe that they cannot move, they cannot leave. And as they grow older and older and older and bigger and more powerful, they still don't believe they have the power to break that rope. So, for me, that story might mean different things to different people. Yes. But for me, it's that, we can get conditioned to believing that that's the extent of our universe. That's as much as we can do. But but there we do have more power than we believe to make different choices, to break free from convention or tradition and do something different.
Elephants never forget. That's a beautiful story.
It's good, isn't it?
Yes. And again, allowing people to realize their true potential is the joy of how you can help them when you're coaching them to break free of those things that bind us. Thank you so much. Just a couple of announcements from me as we close towards the end. If you'd like to have a conversation about being in the show too, this has been a founder story with the lovely Ben Nathan. The website for the show is thegoodlisteningtoshow.com. There are many different series strands about how you can get involved. The one I'm most excited about in terms of where I'm at the moment is called legacylifereflections.com, which has its own standalone website now, but that's to record the story of somebody near, dear or close to you, either your own story, we're all close to ourselves, or the story of somebody precious to you for posterity, lest we forget before it's too late, using the unique storytelling structure of this show. And rather profoundly, my father is a mascot for it because I recorded my dad in the halcyon days of his 80s about 5 years ago with no morbid intention. But now that my dad is no longer with us, I know how precious the recording and the film that I have of him is, because what we miss the most when that precious special someone has gone is what they sounded like, the sound of their voice.
Wow.
So if you want to join with me on LinkedIn, you may be watching on LinkedIn, then that's me, Chris Grimes, broadcaster, motivational comedian and coach. But very importantly, this has been, and thank you so much, that was an absolute joy, Ben Nathan. And whatever you do, connect with Ben. And rather weirdly, I'll see you later, and I'll be on stage going, and you'll be knowing I'm thinking, but anyway.
You'll be fine.
Anything else you'd like to say?
No, I've said enough.
Great stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much indeed. And thank you, Courtney and Dan, who does the podcast editing. Good night.